जय राधा माधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारि यमुनातीरावनचारि जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी जय राधमाधव जय कुञ्ज बिहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna everyone. Today we'll go to the verse later, but first we'll read from Prabhupada Leelamrita. Share my screen. Hopefully I'm sharing the right one. Yeah. So in the opinion of the devotees and trustees here, $1,000 has been risked without any understanding. I know that you are doing your best, but still there has been an error of judgment. I'm not at all displeased with you, but they say that Mr. Price will never be able to secure financial help from any other source. He's simply taking time under different pretexts, changing constantly. Therefore, you should not pay even a farthing more than what you have paid. If you want, if he wants any more money, you should flatly refuse. Srila Prabhupada remembered Mr. Price and their first meeting, at which the blonde haired, elegantly dressed businessman, his face tanned even in winter, had addressed him as Your Excellency. That address alone had made Prabhupada distrust him. There was a Bengali saying, too much devotion denotes a thief. Prabhupada knew that businessmen were prone to cheat and that an American businessman would be particularly difficult to deal with. Prabhupada's American disciples were innocent children in worldly affairs. He was ready to instruct them step by step, but now, without consulting him, they had become involved in an unbusinesslike transaction, risking $1,000 of the society's money without any written agreement. Srila Prabhupada had visited the building on Stuyvesant Street and he wanted it. It was a historical, well kept, aristocratic building suitable for his New York headquarters. It was worth the 100,000 price if they could afford it. But it was difficult for Prabhupada to know that San Francisco, what was going on between Brahmananda and the businessmen. And the difficulty increased as letters and phone calls from Ramananda introduced other persons involved. Aside from Mr. Price, there was Mr. Taylor, the owner, and Mr. Taylor's lawyer, who seemed independent of Mr. Taylor, and finally there was ISKCON's lawyer, who also had a mind of his own. Although Srila Prabhupada's disciples usually surrendered to his direction, they seemed bent on listening to the businessman's promises, even though their spiritual master had cautioned them not to. Prabhupada became disturbed. His preaching in San Francisco was being threatened by fears that the businessman would cheat his society of what he had begun in New York. With no responsible advisors to turn to, Srila Prabhupada sometimes discussed the problem with Mukunda and other devotees in his room. They all agreed that the transactions seemed highly irregular. Brahmananda was probably being led on by false promises. Brahmananda, however, saw Mr. Price as a rare person, a successful man who wanted to help the devotees. Although no other respectable businessman had ever shown interest, Mr. Price listened and sympathized, and he would greet the devotees with Hare Krishna. Ramananda was well aware of the humble economic and social position of the devotees. They were almost all ex-hippies and they were poor. But here was Mr. Price, a wealthy man with diamond cuff links who was always glad to see him, shake his hand, pat his back, and speak appreciatively of the religion of India and the moral behavior of the small band of devotees. Mr. Price had received a group of devotees as guests in his apartment and said nice things about each of them. He had said that Hayagriva was an excellent writer and that Back to Godhead was the best magazine on the market and that its mimeographed appearance made it look even better than the slicks. He said he would give the devotees a movie projector, and he came close to saying that if he could liquidate some of his money, he would give them the building. Brahmananda, who saw Mr. Price a few times a week, would come away intoxicated with high hopes. The Krishna consciousness movement could rise to success through this wealthy man patronage. After leaving Mr. Price's office, Brahmananda would rejoin the devotees in the and tell them all that had happened. On nights when there were no public kirtanas, the devotees who hold meetings, Swamiji had named them Ishtagoshtis to discuss the instructions of the spiritual master. and the Ishtagoshtis became dominated by talks of Mr. Bryce and the building. One night, Brahmananda explained why he had given Mr. Price $1,000. Mr. Price had asked for something to work with. It was like earnest money, and it was also a trip Mr. Price had to take to Pittsburgh to see whether he could release some of his wealth to use in Krishna's service. One of the boys asked whether there would be any receipt or written agreement. Swamiji had taught them to use receipts at least amongst themselves. Gargamuni and Sattva Rupa, as treasurer and secretary, signed each voucher, and Gargamuni kept the voucher on file. These included requests for items like 50 cents and $3 for sneakers. Ramananda said he had mentioned a written statement to Mr. Price, but hadn't pressed the matter. Anyway, it wasn't necessary or even desirable, since they were not simply conducting business with Mr. Price but cultivating a relationship. Mr. Price was a well wisher, a friend who was helping them as charity. He was going to do big things and use his influence to get the building. This $1,000 was just a gesture to show their interest and to show Mr. Price's friends, the devotees, weren't joking. They had some money. So I'll stop there and we start with today's verse. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयत् नष्टप्रायसे भद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भागवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So we have two verses today. So we will recite both the verses together, and then we will see the translation and purport, and then go into the discussion. संशयोऽत्रातु मे विप्र सञ्चिन्नस्तत् कृतो महान् रशयोऽपि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तया संशयोऽत्र तु मे विप्र सञ्चिन्नस्तत्कृतो महान् रशयोऽपि निमुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तया संशयोऽत्र तु मे विप्र सञ्चिन्नस्तत्कृतो महान् रशयापि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तया कर्माणि आरभते येन पुमानिह विहायतम् अमुत्रानन्येन देहेन दुष्टानि सा यद् अश्नुते कर्माणि आरभते येन पुमान् इह विहायतम् अमुत्रान्येन देहेन जुष्टानि सा यद् अश्नुते कर्माणि आरभते येन पुमानिह विहायतम् अमुत्रान्येन देहेन जुष्टानि सा यदश्नुते. Anybody would like to recite these verses?
हरे कृष्ण माताजी दंडवत प्रणाम.
Tanvit Pranam Prabhu.
संशय अत्र तु मे विप्र संच्छिन्नस्तत्कृतो महान् ऋषयो अपि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र निन्द्रियवृत्तया कर्माणि आरभते येन पुमानिह विहायतम् अमृतायनेन देहेन जुष्टानि यत् अश्नुते। हरे कृष्ण।
Thank you, Brahmani.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am trying.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
সংশয়ত্র তু মে বিপ্র সঞ্চিন্নস্তৎকৃতো মহান ঋষয়োऽপি হি মুহ্যন্তি যত্র নেন্দ্রিয়বৃত্তয়ঃ কর্মণ্যারভতে येन পুমানিহ বিহায়তম অমূত্রান্যেন দেহেন जुष्टानि सजत् अश्नुते। हरे कृष्ण।
माताजी
Yes, Mataji.
संशयोऽत्र तु मे विप्र सञ्छिन्नस्तत्कृतो महान् ऋषयोऽपि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तयः कर्मण्यारभते येन पुमानिह विहायतम् अमूत्राण्येन देहेन जुष्टानि स अदश्नुते। हरे कृष्ण।
Thank you.
हरे कृष्ण माताजी
Hare Krishna.
दंडवत प्रणाम।
Dandavat pranam. Please.
संशयोऽत्र तु मे विप्रा सञ्चिन्नस्तत्कृतो महाऋष्योऽपि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तयः कर्मण्यर्भते न पुमामिह विहायतम् अमूत्राणेन देहेन तुष्टानि सायत अश्नुते। हरे कृष्ण माताजी, थैंक यू।
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, can I read please? Yeah.
Yes, Mataji.
संशयत्र तु मे विप्र सच्चिन्नस्तकृतो महान् ऋषयोऽपि हि मुह्यन्ति यत्र नेन्द्रियवृत्तयः कर्मण्यैरभते येन पुमानिह विहायतम् अमूत्रान्येन देहेन जुष्टानि स यदुष्णते। हरे कृष्ण।
Thank you, Mataji. So we'll go to word translation now. Samshaya, doubt, atra here, to, but, may, my, vipra, O brahmana, sanshinaha, cleared, tatkritaha, done by, that, mahan, very great, rashaya, the great sages, api, even, high, he, certainty, muhyati, are bewildered, yatra, where, na, not, indriya, of the senses, vrittaya, activities. Karmani, fruitive activities. Arabhate, begins to perform. Yena, by which. Puman, a living entity. Iha, in this life. Vihaya, giving up. Tam, that. Amrita, in the next life. Anyena, another. Dehena, by a body. Justhani, the result. Sa, he, yat, that. Ashnute, enjoys. So we'll go to the translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Anybody would like to read the translation and purport?
May
Yes, Mandy.
both or just one?
Just this translation and purport, and then the next one can read the second verse translation and purport.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Brahmana, there are contradictions between your instructions and those of my spiritual teachers who engaged me in fruitive activities. I now can understand the distinction between devotional service, knowledge, and renunciation. I had some doubts about them, but you have now very kindly dissipated all these doubts. I can now understand how even the great sages are bewildered by the real purpose of life. Of course, there is no question of sense gratification. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I'll read the purport. King Barishman was engaged in different types of sacrifice for elevation to the heavenly planets. People generally are attracted by these activities, and very rarely is a person attracted to devotional service, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms. Unless one is very, very fortunate, he does not take to devotional service. Even the so called learned Vedic scholars are bewildered by devotional service. They are generally attracted to the rituals for sense gratification. In devotional service, there is no sense gratification, but only transcendental loving service to the Lord. Consequently, the so called priests engaged in sense gratification do not very much like devotional service. The Brahmanas, the priests, have been against this Krishna consciousness movement since it began with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started this movement, the priestly class lodged complaints to the Qazis, the magistrate of the Muhammadan government. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to lead a civil disobedience movement against the propaganda of the so called followers of Vedic principles. These people are described as Karmajada Smaratas, which indicates that they are priests engaged in ritualistic ceremonies. It is here stated that such people become bewildered. Rashayopihi Muhyati. To save oneself from the hands of these karmajada smaratas, one should strictly follow the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma suchaha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. Bhagavad Gita 18.66.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I read the next one.
Okay, Prabhuji. Please read the
Trans-
translation and purport both.
yeah. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Results of whatever a living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life. Purport. A person generally does not know how one body is linked with another body, how it is possible that one suffers or enjoys the result of activity in this body, in yet another body in the next life. This is a question of it is a question the king wants Narad Muni to answer. How may one have human body in this life and not a human body in the next? Even great philosophers and scientists cannot account for the transferal of karma from one body to another. As we have experienced, every individual also has an individual body, and one person's activities or one body's activities are not enjoyed or suffered by another body or another person. The question is how activities of one body are suffered or enjoyed in the next. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So, go with the prayers. Om Jnanatimantasya Jnananjana Chakshuntam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Sajivam साधवैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते व्यासपीठ नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So today we are going to discuss two verses, and Prabhupada has very nicely outlined, especially in the first verse. We'll see that this verse is a continuation of the discussion between Narad Muni and King Prachanibari. So King is telling Narad Muni that now he is able to distinguish between fruitive activity and devotional service. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada makes three beautiful statements, which we are going to see one by one. But basically, what Narad Muni has established here is that devotional service is far, far superior than fruitive activities or karmakanda. So the first statement that Srila Prabhupada makes here is that unless one is very, very fortunate, he doesn't take to the devotional service. So we see over here that King Prachanibharishta, although he was a very exalted devotee, he has all the opulence, where he was in a position of being able to control everything. Everything is under his direction in that specific kingdom. But he had somehow or other couldn't take the path of devotional service, so fallen away. So he has, because so much of opulence and so much of engagement in the fruitive activities, and nobody to give or give that knowledge or guide. So it requires a spiritual master like Narad Muni to come and preach him, to open his eyes, that see the real goal of this human form of life. Even in scriptures, we see so many times the great sages, munis, tapasis, when they come in contact with pure devotees, only then their heart goes under transformation. There is a story about this transformation, a very nice pastime from Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is about the story of Prakashananda Saraswati. He was a very great Mayavadi scholar. And based in Varanasi, it was described that he had 16,000 disciples, everybody, and he was preaching Mayavadi philosophy at that time. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Varanasi. There was a Maharashtrian Brahmin who recognized and understood that, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he arranged a meeting between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakashananda Saraswati. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to that meeting, where Prakashananda Saraswati was seated with his disciples, he immediately took a very humble position. He went to a place where people were normally, they washed their feet. So he washed his feet, and then instead of going to a very elevated place to sit, he just sat down there. So all these scholars were sitting on elevated position, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just sat where he was. But he started illuminating his Brahman effulgence. So Prakashananda Saraswati, when he saw this effulgence, then he went to the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting and told him, "Sir, how can you be sitting over here? This is not a seat for you. You should come and honor this seat." So from this pastime, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to exemplify the quality of Trinadapi Sunechan. So we can't go to a place and start giving initially person can't get respect by demanding, but they get respect because they deserve it. People see it. So Prakashananda Saraswati asked him that, you look very scholarly, then why are you not preaching our philosophy and just chanting the holy name? And the humility of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he replied that actually my spiritual master considers me a fool. He has told me that this Vedanta philosophy is not for you. You should just chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That will be adequate for you, enough for you. So Prakashananda Saraswati's heart was stuck with the humility of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then there was a great discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Prakashananda Saraswati. And during this course of discussion, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu completely defeated the philosophy, Mayavadi philosophy of Prakashananda Saraswati, and smashed it into pieces. But Prakashananda Saraswati Thakur could take it, could hear that knowledge, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu built that relationship. So dry philosophy is something that won't touch the heart. What is required is the existence of the relationship. And it is that relationship which actually motivates us to practice devotional service. So Vaishnava philosophy is like that. It is based on relationship. It is existence of the relationship between the God and his devotees, between Krishna and his devotees. So what we understand about Mayavadi philosophy is that Srila Prabhupada, what he says about this, he says that we should understand the ultimate goal. And Narad Muni is also trying to explain the ultimate goal here. That the ultimate goal of Mayavadi philosophy is to merge into impersonal Brahman and then come back. Fruitive activity, you get some credit, pious credit out of it. People go to heavenly planets and then come back again. So what is the purpose? And what Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam. So one who knows the transcendental nature of my activities and pastime does not come back. So the main goal is not to return to this material world. So that's what we should be aiming for. So, and we are saying, like, if we see how many people are following pure devotional service, many get attracted to easy path. There's so many people who are like non-bona fide areas where people are just openly giving initiation, who are not even from bona fide sampradayas. But people just go for it because their mind is just absorbed in fruitive activities and they don't know the real purpose of life. So the point Srila Prabhupada is making is quite true, that the people who are actually practicing pure devotional service is very rare. That's why they are very, very fortunate. Not everybody takes it. So in fact, Krishna also says this in Bhagavad Gita. Very famous verse is, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So there are millions of people out there propagating many different philosophies, but when one comes in contact with the devotee practicing Krishna consciousness, then they are put on the right track. Then we are linked to what Krishna has spoken in Bhagavad Gita. There is one such pastime of a fortunate person, the power of devotional service, the pastime of Bali Maharaj. We see that how when Bali Maharaj came in contact with Vamandev, he just surrendered. He asked for 3 pieces of land. He knew the consequences. He was warned about the consequences, but he was just so pleased to serve the Lord. And that is the satisfaction one gets in serving the Lord. And that is the highest pleasure. So then Lord was so pleased with him, with his surrender, that he asked, okay, then ask me for some benediction. But he didn't ask for any benediction. He just said, I'm just happy serving you. But then what Lord did, he became the doorkeeper of the planet that Bali Maharaj was ruling. So Lord takes the menial service for his devotee just to show how potent pure devotional service is. So we see a very recent example of Srila Prabhupada. He surrendered and he went to US at a very advanced age. There was no one to help him or receive him. So, how could he manage to spread the Krishna consciousness everywhere? With Krishna's and his spiritual master's mercy. And he gives all his credit to his spiritual master's mercy. So, that is the mood of a pure devotee, that in fact, he has done lots of great services. Please excuse those pop-ups. But he gives all the credit to the spiritual master's mercy. He said it has all happened because of the mercy of spiritual master and Krishna. So this is something the advanced devotees of the Lord always meditate on. Constant meditation within the heart that whatever happened is by the mercy of the spiritual master. So what we understand is that who is most fortunate? Who is very fortunate? Because there is a part from a purport that was from purport from Srimad Bhagavatam that I came across, and it was very interesting. So I'll share that. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said, Prabhupada is saying that in the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that such fallen devotees are given a chance. So it's talking about the person who doesn't finish their devotional service or perfect in this life, what happens to them. So then he says such devotees are given another chance. They are given chance in a family of highly qualified brahmanas or in a rich mercantile family. And then he explained that a devotee in such position is not as fortunate. He's not as fortunate even if you're born in a very rich family. Why? Because money can't attract you to Krishna all the time. But the one who is chastised by the Lord, who is put into the position seemingly of helplessness, that is more fortunate. So the devotee who becomes helpless by the will of the Lord is more fortunate than those who are born in good families. The fallen devotees born in a good family may forget the lotus feet of the Lord because they are less fortunate. But the devotee who is put into a forlorn condition is more fortunate because he swiftly returns to the lotus feet of the Lord, thinking himself helpless all around. So this is so true. I mean, there are so many distractions that will distract. If our life becomes comfortable, financially, mentally, there is no issues troubling us. Somehow people can become laid back in devotional life, but we need that situation of helplessness that will put us back on track. It will help us to remember Krishna, that no, I am deviating. Our life and situations can be helpless. We are helpless in many forms. And that is the feeling that makes us very fortunate to take devotional service. And then the second statement that Prabhupada mentions here is that in devotional service, there is no sense gratification, but only transcendental loving service to the Lord. In practicing phase, there is regulated sense gratification. But this is talking about very advanced stage where there is no sense gratification, because when people start practicing and they become more and more advanced, their senses are satisfied anyway just by serving the Lord and his devotees. They don't need any additional areas for gratifying their senses. So there is a story of Pundarik Vidyanidhi from Chaitanya Charitamrita. There was one time when Mukund took Gadadhar Pandit that, Lord, let's go to a house of a devotee, very nice devotee. His name is Pundarika Vidyanidhi. So they both went to his house, and they saw that he was lying down on a very opulent bed. He was elegantly dressed. He was fanned by the servants. And Gadadhar Pandit thought, oh, how come this person be a devotee? Is living so opulently. And Mukunda could read his mind. So he could read his mind. So he started narrating a pastime from Srimad Bhagavatam about the glories of Krishna, given the position of Dasi mother to Putna, and like he just recited the verse of how merciful Krishna is, the person who comes to kill you, but still he is so merciful, is so loving that he gave that person the position of a Dasi mother. And just by hearing this pastime, just by hearing this simple glorification of Krishna, Pundrika Vidyanidhi went into ecstasy for 6 hours. Nobody could hold him. Then Gadadhar Pandit realized, oh, how fool I was to judge him just by external bits. And then he took initiation from Vidyanidhi. So, external manifestation of a devotee who may be acting as living in a very material opulent surroundings, what we learn that we cannot actually judge or come to any conclusion, because the relationship and consciousness that one may experience with Krishna can be very difficult for others to understand. If there is a way I can mute this. Okay. So that's why when we are into pure devotional service or we are practicing devotional service, then sense gratification takes a backstage and main focus becomes Krishna. And then the third point what Prabhupada makes is that last statement that Prabhupada mentions about is karma jada smrtas. Who are keen? Who are these? Basically, externally, they may look like brahmanas performing rituals, but these are one who performs mundane ritualistic activities. Prabhupada is saying that to save oneself from the hands of these karma jada smritas, one should strictly follow the instruction of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one should be able to save from this thought process or to get into these sort of things. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommends various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resulted good birth, power, and so forth. So, being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. And then in the Vedas, there are lots of karmakanda and activities and rituals to just fulfill sense gratification. They're saying, if you do this, you will get this. If you worship this particular devta, then this problem will be solved. But everything is to make life comfortable, this life comfortable. So we are only working on the bodily level and bodily relationship. We intuitively know who to worship if we need certain special benefits. So, and devtas are bound by the rules to give a certain benefit, whether it is good or bad. So, they just even eventually person understand that the benefits of the devtas are actually coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything comes from him. But still, it takes a while for people to get into the scriptures, get what Krishna is saying, to understand that everything is coming from Krishna. If we see there is even in Ganpati Puja, there's very after Aarti they say Kayena vacha manasa indriye va buddhyatma va prakriti swabhavat karomi yat sakalam parashme narayaneti samarpayami. So they are actually offering everything to Krishna at the end. I mean, they sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So other yajnas and pujas for karmakandi, if you ask brahmanas, what are you doing it for? Ultimately, who is it for? You will understand it is for Vishnu. So that's why it's very important to understand that's why we just need to surrender to Krishna and we don't need to worry about other things. Everything will be taken care. The Prabhupada gives examples of Chandkazi in this purport that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Supreme Personality of Godhead, came directly to explain that chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is the highest. But then there were people like Chandkazi and other Brahmanas who did not understand even in the presence of Lord. So out of enviousness, they have complained to Chandkazi, and Chandkazi, out of ignorance, he felt threatened. And then he instructed to, break the mridanga, control the movement, stop them from doing all this. But then just by association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chandkazi was transformed and all his people were favorable to devotional service. So this is what Krishna is teaching. He's teaching also through the example of Brahmana's wife's pastime. That when Krishna asked and went to the Brahmanas when they were doing the yajna and asked them for prasadam, they didn't give. They just shoot them off. But when they went to the wives, they understood the real purpose and they very lovingly fed the boys of the prasadam. So this is what it is, that Brahmanas, even after being so scholarly, what is the use if you don't understand the main purpose is to serve the Supreme Lord? The whole yajna was being done for Lord, but when Lord himself comes, we don't offer him anything. So that is why it's important to surrender unto Krishna and his devotees, because Krishna is pleased when we serve Vaishnava than he himself. And Krishna doesn't come alone, of course, he comes with his whole devotees, and that is the whole loving devotional service is. It is not just between the soul and the super soul, it is between the soul and super soul and the other devotees serving Krishna. And then we see the second verse. So in the second verse, King Prachani he has understood, Narad Muni, that, okay, I understand that Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. But then he brings, because now, as you inquire from your spiritual master, you have a lot of doubts. So this is one of his doubts, that, this one body is doing something, then how come the next body suffers the problem, or the next body suffers the reactions of what is done in this body? So that's why he brings this verse. And then he says, the whole topic about karma and karma kanda activities. So is that why, sorry, I'm a little bit confused. So yeah, so he's asking that devotional service is higher to sense gratification, but then he gets a query that why this cycle of karma is there. So the cycle of karma is there because we are in one body and then we are in the other body. But what people, or his doubt is that he's thinking that body ends and the owner ends just with this body in this life, but actually the body is just the dress. And that's what Narad Muni is trying to explain him. So he is trying to explain him that don't settle down in just good activities and enjoy the results of good activities just because you think that everything ends from here. Everything doesn't ends from here because the soul transmigrate from one body to the other. It is same as the story of like a caterpillar, cocoon, and butterfly. It's the same person or the same soul that is going through it. It's just the body is changing doesn't mean that the new next transformation, or if the child is there, that doesn't mean, oh, child is different. Then when we grow up to the age of 40 or to the age of 50, we become different. We are safe internally. So that's why it's important to understand the transmigration of soul and how our activities gets transferred. And everything doesn't end with this life. We are responsible for it in this life and next life. So Narad Muni is explaining, please develop love of Krishna. Please perform devotional service. That will take you out of this. Because this karma kanda and activities will take you down, will keep you stuck. But the safest thing for everybody is to involve in devotional service. Because at least we will not slide down. Devotional service always takes us higher. Even if one person doesn't finish all or doesn't perfect in one life, people will still have the bank balance of devotional service to carry on from the next life. Nobody takes anything when they die after this body is ended, but only they take is their karmic reactions, their spiritual credits. And of course, their pious and bad karmas credit as well, which one should, that's what the devotional service can help in managing that. There is a story of Nriga, King Nriga, very interesting story from 10th canto. It is about how he became a lizard. Why? Because of a small error. He was just into pious activities. So one day, I'll go in a little bit background that one day Samba and other young boys of the Yadavas dynasty went to the forest to play. And after playing for a long time, they became very thirsty and began looking for water. So inside a dry well, they found an amazing creature, a huge lizard. And he was resembling a hill. So boys felt sorry for it and tried to pull it out. But after several attempts, they just couldn't. But then they saw it, they were not able to rescue the creature. So they went to Lord Krishna and told him what has happened. So Lord Krishna then went to the well and he extended his left hand and easily could take the lizard out. So by the touch of Lord Krishna's hand, the lizard transformed into a demigod. And then Lord Krishna asked, "Who are you? How did you assume such a lowly form?" So then the divine replied, "Actually, my name was King Nriga." So in his past life, his name was King Nriga, son of Ikshvaku. And I was famous for giving charity. So he was famous for doing good activities, pious activities like charity. And he gave away countless cows to numerous brahmanas. But on one occasion, a cow belonging to a first-class brahmana it just wandered into the herd. So, unaware of this, he gave this same cow in a charity to a different brahmana by mistake. But when the cow's previous owner saw the second brahmanas taking this cow away, the first brahmana claimed the cow as his and began arguing with the second brahmana. And after quarreling for some time, they approached the king and then they said to take 100,000 cows in exchange. He gave like, okay, let's settle down the thing, settle down the fight, and you can take 1,000 cows in exchange. And please forgive me for this offense that I have done unknowingly. But Brahmana would not accept the proposal, and the matter just became unsettled. because he displeased the Brahmana, uh, and when he died, was taken by the Yamadutas to the court of Yamraj. The Yama asked him that what he prefers. He prefers to suffer his sinful reactions first or enjoy the pious activities. So he said, okay, first give the sinful reactions, then I can happily enjoy the pious credit. So then he got a body of the lizard to suffer for it. So this is how dangerous it is. He was doing everything well. Even the mistake he did was not knowingly. Still, there was no use of a huge balance of his pious credit. Somehow he was forced to get stuck in a lizard body. So that is the nature of karma activities. Whether even if you perform good material activity, it will bring you back. It somehow or other, we are tied, all these things tie us so badly that it will not let us out of these karmic reactions. So we need to be very, very careful. Karmkand people have a lot of network of things that do this, do that, but it is very technical and very difficult to follow. One mistake, a lot of downfall. So why to talk about all these? Why to just enjoy the good results and be happy? This is not the end of it. So what Narad Muni is explaining, that soul is capable of a lot more. Just don't get entangled into just this. Do good, enjoy, do good, enjoy. It's not just that. It is about much higher capacity. And that is to understand and work for the soul, which can get lots of happiness just by connecting to Krishna. So Jiva is being fooled in this material nature that you can just be happy here. So think that it can go beyond it. So there, as we see that in chapter 15, there is an opposite world out there, and that is the real spiritual world. We are living in a reflected material world. So it is not necessary for us to deal with all these activities, but our goal is to come out of it. And that is what Prachinavat is arguing with Narad Muni and trying to say that platform and trying to say that platform and domain. But Narad Muni is explaining something far more beyond this. That is transcendental. It is not even necessary to get into the activities of this body and just see how much good credit I'm getting out of this, or how much we are going to get next life even. So point is that, as we are saying, that same dress is going, everything is so uniquely identified. One cannot say that, oh, I don't remember anything about my past life, so I don't believe it, because it's a science. It's a science of material nature, which not everybody, if you don't believe it, it doesn't exist. There is a connection between past life and present life. If we say, oh, who has witnessed it? What is the proof? So the proof is super soul. There is a lot of fact around it. There is a lot of, just like in a company, an agency, a lot of people are working through it. Similarly, in this material world, a lot of people are working through it and we don't even know. Google is watching us all the time, collecting all the facts about us. But Krishna, as a super soul, is constantly watching for everything that we do. Everything, which we don't even realize, we are not even conscious of our every act, but our every act has consequences. But we don't have to worry as long as we do devotional service. Krishna will take care of it. Because we see the story of Bharat Maharaj and Jada Bharat as well, that how in Jada Bharat body, Bharat Maharaj, he could remember his past life as Bharat Maharaj, as deer, but he was given a special facility because he was a very advanced devotee. So similarly, we all have been entangled with all our past karmas, our conditioning, and how we are just entangled in here. But if we just surrender, then we can just stop this. We can just stop this cycle. But we are so busy in our own life that we just don't want to see there's anything beyond it. And especially when what we don't see, we don't believe, but we can experience it. Can experience it from stories of reincarnations, from stories of all these scriptures. We know what is the truth. So there is only two governing principle that is working here: the law of karma and the law of reincarnation. So as a spirit soul, we don't need a material body. The spirit soul doesn't need a material body, but we are given material body because of our desires. Our desires to enjoy separate from Krishna. So soul doesn't need to go through this transmigration. So then we see, oh, okay, what is the root cause? The root cause is desire, and the other root cause is bahirmukha, forgetting Krishna. So Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is saying, forgetting Krishna, the living entity has been attracted by the external feature from time immemorial. Therefore, the illusionary energy gives him all kinds of miseries in his material existence. So because we are forgetting Krishna, so we are in this material world. Or we are forgetting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because that is what is our real identity to our relationship with Krishna. So in general, we can short the principle in two lines. If we act on the body level, one more body. If we act on the soul level, no more body. If I act on this body, I will get another body. But if I act on soul, then no further bodies. But to act on body is not, to act on soul is not very easy. And that is why Krishna has spoken about Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada has explained all the philosophy and his purport just to explain how to act on the soul level, how to be Krishna conscious, how to perform devotional service. So that desire to enjoy from Krishna is the cause of our material existence. There is a nice verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. So it says, Sanat Kumar says that, my dear king, you already have an inclination to glorify the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such attachment is very difficult to achieve. But when one has attained such unflinching faith in the Lord, it automatically cleanses lusty desires from the core of the heart. So how do we reverse it? We have a desire to separately enjoy. We are forgetting Krishna. So to counteract it, it's the same thing. Start remembering Krishna and get to the devotional service and develop that unflinching faith in the Lord. So in conclusion, what Nad Muni is establishing is that Bhakti Yoga is the topmost, and that's what we see. If you see in this Karma Khanda or the Yoga ladder, which Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, all these different types of yoga. See, Karma Khanda is at a very bottom level, and Bhakti Yoga is the topmost, because that directly connects us to the Supreme Lord. And Prithu Maharaj is also saying about sense gratification, which we have talked about, that it is sense gratification that is holding us. How can the person get any good fortune? So then Sanat Kumar answers that by having unflinching faith in the Lord, it automatically cleanses lusty desires from the core of the heart. So by performing devotional service, by surrendering to Krishna, by associating with pure devotees, then we can get out of the sense gratification part. And that is very powerful because all these examples we see how Nad Muni, as a pure devotee, gave his association to others and then they developed the taste. Even Nad Muni got the taste for hearing and chanting by, and he developed a great desire for devotional service by association of great Vaishnavas in his past life. So, if we quickly explain the Nad Muni's story, that in his previous life, to his he's explaining his story in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam 1.5.25, what Nad Muni says, that his previous life to his disciple Vyasadev, he says that while engaged as a boy servant for those purified devotees during the 4 months of their stay, he was intimately associating with them. So he's talking about association with purified devotees. So sometimes those sages left remnants of food on their dishes, and the boy who would wash their dishes wanted to taste the remnants. So he tasted their remnants, he served pure devotees. So he asked the great devotees for their permission. Another thing to know, that we should always ask for permission when to ask to eat their remnants. So when they gave it to Nad Muni, he ate those, and that's how he became freed from sinful reactions. And he went on eating. He gradually became as pure hearted as the sages. So the great devotees relished the taste of unceasing devotional service to the Lord by hearing and chanting. And Narad Muni gradually developed the same taste just by association. So by associating with the sages, Narad got the taste for hearing and chanting, and he developed that desire. So So, as described in the Vedanta Sutra, that if one simply engage in the acts of devotional service, everything is revealed to him automatically. And he can understand this directly. You don't even have to ask someone for it. You can just experience it. So I would like to end there. If anybody have any questions or comments,
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandot Pranam.
then with Pranam
Thank
Prabhu.
you very much for explaining these two texts 57, 58, underlining the main points of what is the distinction between the fruitive activities and devotional service, and how devotional service can be achieved with the various examples as per Krishnananda Saraswati and others with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then it comes to how devotional service is not like a ordinary service. It is just like to give service to the Lord, avoiding sense gratification. And third one comes to karma jada smritas, which is so important. Without understanding the importance of devotional service, how people move around. And the next text, which is talking about how Prachin Varishad tried to understand this, the transmigration, how from one life to another life we get suffered and we don't understand the impact. So those are the things that very clearly explained with the examples showing, yes, it is just like a recorder, black box of an aeroplane. Whatever happens in the aeroplane during its flight, it will be all recorded. We may not even notice that, but it is all recorded. So with this record, we understand that whatever activities we do in this material life, that will going to be affect our next life. And because the body get diminishes in this life, but the recorder, which is the subtle body that carries along with the soul the whole black box activities for the next life. So to be to be free of this distinction and understanding, the best way to make this life purposeful by doing the devotional service, in the association of great devotees of the Lord, so that this life can be purified from the fruitive activities to the transcendental activities, and the next life will automatically upgraded, and we can achieve the association of Krishna if this life is fruitfully engaged in the devotional service, because service is nothing but to satisfy the senses of the Lord. So once we do that, we are at the door of Krishna and life is settled. And this is the message Narad Muni is giving to Prachin Varishan, with his even with his own example, how Narad Muni became Narad Muni from his earlier life, a poor servant's son, to a Narad Muni status. So it is only possible by doing the purposeful devotional service and understanding the importance of devotional service in the association of great devotees. So that's the understanding from my side. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for listening so attentively and summarizing it so well.
Hare Krishna Mate, seems no other speaker is ready, so we can end up. Panchakalpataruvasya kripa
सिंधुभ्य
sindhu
एव च पतितानां
पतितानां
पावनेभ्यो
पावनेभ्यो
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो
नमः
नमः
अनंत
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव
कोटि
वृंद
भारत अनंगलता माता जी की
जय
प्रभुपाद की जय
जय
गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि
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 हरि बोल
बोल
Thank you,
All
Mataji.
prayers and devotees Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji, for
Krishna.
your
Thank
kind
you very much.
class. Hare Krishna.